Welcome to Dental Unscripted, where Mike Dinzio and Paula Quinn break down the practice ownership journey, one episode at a time. Starting up, buying, and running a successful dental practice.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode with Dental Unscripted. It's Michael and Paula, your co-hosts. We're happy to be here. We're excited. It's we're getting this week going with a podcast, and we have a topic today that we feel like is pretty relevant, and we think it was important enough to make it a podcast and come up with a cool topic that you all might be thinking about or found yourself feeling these certain ways. And so we're excited to get going and discuss the abundant mindset versus the scarcity mindset, and how it can really cripple you as a business owner and even person. But before we get into all that fun stuff, just a couple housekeeping things per usual. Be sure to subscribe, follow us. We're trying to get our followers up, just like you all try to do that in your practice. If you see that 5-star review, please click on that. It helps us on our ratings. We don't do anything with this other than give our time and share our knowledge. And if you could pay us back by simply giving us a like or just do a Google review, we'd really appreciate that. So I guess without further ado, Paula, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, thanks. Our energy is
well, that's what happens when we do podcasts in the
afternoon.
Yeah,
right
in the afternoon.
Yeah. So
I haven't had enough cups of coffee, but yeah. So Paula, I was thinking about our clients, more recent, and I don't know if it's about the generation. I know you've been doing a lot of generational research lately, and maybe it's some of the generation. I don't want to turn this episode into the generation.
We should do an episode on the generation.
We should do that. Let's do that. Why don't you finish that book, and then we'll do the episode on the Gen X and the Ys and the Zs and the X and Qs. Let's do it all and kind of break it down as to how the generations really think about this stuff. But I do find that our clients of late, and we work with a lot of younger docs, less gray hairs like myself, and more folks are just jumping right into dentistry as new practice owners. They get into this mindset of, I got to hold on to whatever I have or I'm going to lose it. They try to control things. And essentially, we identify that as this idea of scarcity versus abundance. And so, essentially, I looked up, used the old ChatGPT button here, and I wanted to know really what do I mean by scarcity? I know what it feels like, what it looks like, but by definition, the scarcity mindset is a way of thinking where you're constantly feeling like there's not enough money, time, opportunity, resources, or even love. And that you have to fight and compete and hold on tightly to whatever you do have. And so we see this, right? We see this in our clients. We see them just trying to hold on to every little bit. And, Paula, I know that you've seen this, what are your thoughts? How, I know I just read the definition, but this idea of scarcity, do you see this? I know you see it in our clients, but we see it in the decision-making process, don't we? On all things.
Yeah, I think it's actual financial business decisions about the practice. I think it's decisions about the team. I think it's decisions about, patience. I think exposes itself in lots of different ways in dental practices.
Yeah, and just probably all business owners in general, even it's even shown up in our world, of course. So we're human too. We own our own business, and I think even us being held back in some decisions because of a fear of loss, that's a real thing. It's a real thing. So what is abundant mindset? It's the opposite, of course. Good old ChatGPT gives me the opposite of scarcity. That's not a definition, but it's a way of thinking where you believe there is enough opportunity, resources, and success to go.
Well, that's the opposite.
Literally the opposite. So, whereas scarcity is like you focus on the lack of or a fear of loss, you oftentimes think of like the short term, decisions made for survival right now, not for long-term growth. Whereas the abundant person is focusing on possibility, what's possible, trust in growth. Hey, let's trust that this is just going to grow, and if it doesn't, well, we'll cut losses and move on. But that's okay. We got to try this. It's possible. You're thinking long-term. You're celebrating more often. You're open. You're generous. So I think we all would prefer to be more abundant, but it's scary. Paula, when you've been in businesses a long time, like you obviously can think of some times that you fell into both of these opportunities. Do you have any examples that you can think of? I know I'm totally off the cusp, but even when you owned your practice, even maybe when you worked for the other consulting firm.
I can think of two right now in my own practice.
Okay, go. What are those examples of both abundant versus scarcity that being put in those situations? Go ahead.
Well, when I first bought, I can give you all the reasons why I made the choices I made. However,
yeah, of course.
Well, I bought during COVID. It was difficult. Everybody knows that even after COVID to find teams. So that did have a little bit of impact. But I also wanted to run lean and mean because I was a hygiene owner and have that, that 30% automatically went to the doctor.
Yeah.
So here I'm already operating at 70% profit, not profit, but leeway, runway. And then you just got the regular wages and the overhead. So all you dentists out there, you don't usually have that extra 30% that I had. Yeah. So, I try to get by with less employees all the time. Mm-hmm. And what I sacrificed was growth for a while. And I think it was because I couldn't be everything. I knew, and there's lots of reasons, and this sounds arrogant, but I knew how to grow a practice. I know that more than the average bear, but because I was dental assisting and doing hygiene and doing all the things, I couldn't even focus on like going out and doing the marketing and doing the things. So here I had an advantage over most owners because I had a me that couldn't do the dentistry. So I should have been out doing the marketing and the things, but instead of paying a dental assistant $20 an hour or whatever, I decided I can jump in, and so for a long time I couldn't find one. Then I just couldn't find the right one. So I kind of ended up, doing everything. So that was one, living in scarcity there.
Well, hold on. I love that, and I think we should talk about that.
I was going to go into my abundance.
Oh, you wanted to brag on the abundant. Yeah. I mean, okay. Go for the abundant. Well, I was just thinking that, I was translating that to like even our clients and trying to hire the next person, or I get the call or the text all the time, Michael, this gal was asking for $26 and we posted for $24. Can we afford that? And it's just that. It's like, do you think that this, it's not so much that decision, but it's ultimately, investing in the future in the long term and not being scared of growth. And I remember when you were in that mode, and you were running around, and I could see it as clear as day, right? You were doing all the things, and there's only so much that you can do to the point where you're either going to kill yourself, which you were heading towards that path with physically and mentally. But, you know, being stuck in that and being afraid of the finances, that's a real thing for sure. I think a lot of people can relate to that. So I don't know. I was just kind of going off on that, but I remember that, and it was clear as day to me, and it was not clear as day to you, rightfully so. And I think that's why consulting or a friend or a mentor that knows you intimately, they can pull you out of that. They can give you a different perspective that's not feeling it. But man, is it hard to make those decisions even when you have a friend or consultant tell you what you need to do. Yeah. So, okay, go ahead. Abundant. It's a good example of you and abundance.
Well, that same scenario, I was going to give the other side. When I finally let go, took me a while. Mm-hmm. You know, by the time I sold, I wasn't even doing hygiene anymore. I had 2 hygienists, and I had a couple doctors, and I think I was able to give that patient experience that I wanted and do some of the marketing that I wanted. And I feel like it grew, you know, it grew exponentially because I finally, you know, I finally invested in those things that I was so fearful to invest in. It's almost you got to spend money to make money, but you got to do it with strategy. But you have to have the time to strategize, because if you're just living in scarcity, you're always just treading water. Like you can't even sit down long enough to be like, okay, if I did this, what would I have to ROI to do this, you know? So you get stuck just doing, so you don't have time to look at the vision, strategize, really sit back. So I like what you said, like you do need that person, that coach, that friend, that mentor that can help you break it down in bite-sized pieces so that you can see the other side. But I do think that, I mean, docs, anyone who's listening, I can say this for me, there's nobody better to bet on than yourself. You know, no matter who you are, you're not going to let your baby go under. You know, you're going to do everything you can. And so you kind of have to trust some of those things.
Well said.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just kind of it. I guess it was just once I did come for more abundance, like, hey, you know what? I got this. We can do this. More positive attitude, more positive self-talk, you know, things like that. It just, you know, like I said, it was probably should have done it sooner.
You know what? A lot of things are going around in my head as you're talking. Like we do a lot of training on behavior styles when we're coaching our clients. And, you know, we always laugh because if any of you know the DISC analysis, behavior analysis, that's what we do. DISC, look it up, take the test. I think there's some free ones out there. There's a lot of S's, and I don't want to talk over our audience's head, but there's a lot of S's in the world of dentistry, and S's are amazing. I have a brother that's an S.
Is he though, or is he a C?
He's both. I think he's both. He's definitely that Labrador retriever, just
that's true. Yeah.
Steady Eddie. You know, he gets a little excited sometimes, but for the most part, on a daily basis, he's there and he's Mr. Steady, and he doesn't like change. And so what we just described was an S audience, and that S is just very like, they're not going to make huge moves. They're not going to be super bold like a D. So a D is very dominant, very ready to take risks, very quick, sometimes can be abrasive, or it comes across abrasive. And a D takes action. And so, you know, it's kind of funny because, like, you know, we all know that person in our lives, or those other dentists or colleagues that are just quick to make action, and they're okay with risk. Right? They're very quick to make some decisions. And if it fails, it fails. Okay, we learn from the failure. Whereas a lot of the S's are going to research the crap out of something just to try to prevent the thing that could happen. And what we don't do probably is we don't like appreciate, well, what's the worst that could happen? And maybe do a projection. Okay, well, I lose $1,000 if this doesn't work. Well, that's a risk we're willing to take. Let's do it. We're probably not going to lose 1,000. Maybe we only lose 5. But if we're willing to lose 1,000, let's just push the button and see what happens, or whatever that scenario is. And I think us as business owners, definitely dentists who are predominantly S's, try and really push on this idea of just growth. Because if you're just thinking, you're focusing on what you do have and not letting that go, it's really hard to make that thing grow without focusing on the things that need to help you focus. I think that's really interesting, Paula, because you mentioned once you finally made those decisions, it grew. I like that you tied that back to strategy, because if you focus on probably the wrong things with the wrong strategy, maybe you don't have the same growth. So had you stepped away from all of those roles that you were playing in your practice and focused on the wrong thing, maybe not patient experience, even though that's what you focused on, maybe you ended up focusing on a different business, you might not have had the same success. So it's really interesting that strategy and mindset kind of collide for ultimate impact. I don't know if you followed me with that crazy in my brain there, but if you don't focus on the right things, maybe it doesn't grow. But the first step is just thinking that it can grow, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's throw out, go ahead. Yeah, it seems like you want to say something there. I'm reading your eyes there.
No, I mean, you were saying something and I was going to elaborate, but I think it's just more of the same thing of just, I think it's definitely more comfortable, especially if you are micromanaging yourself, your practice, whatever. I think the reason it was important to me is to trust. So once I could lay out a plan, a strategy, then I could trust myself. I wasn't in the mindset to just pivot. It's different. It's different when you're like being adventurous or making quick decisions when it's either doesn't affect money or it affects small things. But when the bigger it gets, the more impact it has. I think even the most action taker D's can turn kind of into what you kind of described as an S today, because you feel like if there's no room for failure, like this is everything. And so I mean, it is a lot of mindset, but I think you do also have to strategize to trust yourself, to take those leaps, I guess.
Yeah. No, you're right. Like if it's $1,000, it might be an easy decision, but if it's $20,000, it's a different
decision. Say that, and it is kind of funny because when you say those docs ask us, hey, can I pay $1 more an hour or can I pay $2? I love that they come to us. I'm not saying that, but then what we do as coaches is put it in the perspective is, okay, it's $1 an hour. Do they even work 40 hours a week? Most of the time they're not. So it depends on where they are in their journey, but the team members are working 20 to maybe 40 hours a week. So this is a decision over 4 weeks, $160 or less. It's like, if they're not worth it, then they're not the right person. Like if at the end of the month, you're still saying, I can't believe I am paying that person $160 more a month than I did before. I mean, it's probably not the right person.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, like, the $2 difference, to your point, I love that you broke it down, because the $2 difference is $160. But usually, like, it's either just a bad fit or a good fit. Yeah. It has nothing to do with the $160. But I think when people are making these decisions, it's like, okay, so we just got off the telephone with a doctor and he's not doing so well. Let's just put it that way. He's in year 3. and he could be doing much better, and he'll admit that. But we had the whole discussion about fee for service versus get in network. And so here we have a very low collection practice, not where anybody that's listening would be happy with, not at all. But he's sticking, not necessarily, but a lot of doctors do. They're sticking to the fee for service strategy. Well, Delta Dental is dropping it from fee for service $1,500 all the way down to $800. That's ridiculous, and I'm not willing to drop it. I'm worth more than that. Meanwhile, there's holes through the schedule. There's 2 patients on the schedule today. So it's just kind of like, okay, where are we drawing our line? And let's forecast this out to see how this plays out. To Paula's point, run it out and see what is at risk. But ironically, usually you can pivot if something's not working so that the impact isn't so big. I think that's the thing about folks that are in an abundant mentality. If they're constantly thinking growth, it doesn't mean that they're making perfect decisions every time. But if you know your business, or if you have a consultant like us or someone watching your business, it's like, hey, this isn't working. We got to adjust and change course. It's going to be fine to do that. But if you're constantly pushing the envelope, constantly trying to figure out how to grow, usually things work out. There's growth.
Yeah. Grows, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I think I totally agree. And then the other thing which we get a lot of, so I'll follow on my sword here on this one too. And you got me out of this hole when I was spending the money on marketing, and so now I'm really good at when people are doing marketing, look at ROI, and I didn't think it was working, and so I cut it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized it was working. And even though I knew it brought people in, each choice was costing me like $5,000.
Each decision to drop some mailers, it was $5,000 or whatever.
Well, each decision to reinvest. Yeah. And so when it came time, one time I was just like, no, I'm thinking $5,000. I don't have it. I don't want to spend it. It doesn't bring a whole lot anyway type, mentality. And then when I stopped, it quickly did impact. Mm-hmm. And so I see it all the time. And I can't even, maybe you can help with this, Michael, because we had this recently. It's like odd. We have a few doctors that when something's working, it's working great. But when they have to cut that next check, all of a sudden they just drop it. Oh, let me try it on my own. Let me not do this. And it's like, but if it's working, why cut it? Why?
And we get into that actually a lot as consultants. It's a very natural thing to start and stop with the consultant. And some folks have consultants for 20 years and it's great. And the other consultants, they get picked up and dropped off very quickly. And we've seen it all, right, as consultants. But yeah, you're right. When you have to write that check, it all of a sudden it's like that chest tightening, and it's like I can't lose where I got. Although all the great decisions that got you to the place that's working, that just goes right out when you're getting ready to write the check. And
it's super weird.
Business owners go through this, even you and me. When I think about our very first employees, if any of them are listening, you guys, Paul and I would sit on the phone and just be like, well, gosh, how are we going to make this work? And whatever we give them, it's right out of our pocket, and we can't really afford this, but let's just do it. And that was an abundant decision. And guess what? The whole thing grew. But if we were stuck in, gosh, we've had great success, just you and I, and we can handle these clients, and then we didn't hire that next employee or whatever, we never would have taken that next step and that next step. And so, and ironically, the bigger you get, the bigger the checks get, the harder it is to write it. So I really have a lot of respect for those folks that grow very consistently to very big companies because they get to a point, they got to write an even bigger check, and they get to another, and then pretty soon $200,000 checks are no big deal to $20 million companies.
Some people out there, yeah.
Yeah, some people out there. A $5,000 mailer is probably the equivalent to the size of business that you were, and you're like, oh shit, I'm not writing this one right now.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. And I think that's business owner 101. And that's why we're having this podcast, because when you focus on growth and have the right strategy behind it, it grows. It's just a fact.
I would think probably the best thing you taught me, even personally, is like a meeting of the mind for me. And we talk about this all the time working on your business. And I think before you make those decisions of scarcity, before you choose, I just can't write that check, whether it's for an employee, whether it's for technology, whether it's for coaching, whether it's for marketing, if you really haven't sat down and did your homework, and I'm not talking to your CPA that says, what do you need that for, kind of conversation.
CPAs are the epitome of scarcity, by the way.
It's really you yourself sit down. And the sad part about it, it's hard for dentists because they don't even take the metrics in the first place to sit down and strategize. So if we're not really tracking referral sources, if we're not really looking at performances of our team, like, we're just going to cut Paula because this. Well, why don't you sit down and look at not only the production physically that I brought in, but the enrollment that I've helped with, the patient experience that I've helped with. So if we're not really tracking metrics and really having those performance check-ins with our team members, we're not really measuring KPIs, whether it comes to marketing, technology, things like that, you really can't
make that decision.
I was going to say educational
decision. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You really can't make that. So then it's just a gut. $5,000. I can't do it. And they just cut it.
Yeah. When you're making decisions on gut, stop. I think that's a great, and I mean, look, women make great decisions on their gut. Men don't. So if you're a man, stop doing that. If you're a woman, sure, lean into it.
I don't think that's true, Michael.
But what I was gonna say is the trump card is the metrics, it's the numbers. And I love that you said that, because even we went through some consulting at our company, and they are big on numbers and scorecards and metrics. And you can't run your business without understanding metrics. And we have tons of episodes and tons of things on metrics. We just did one on KPIs, but 100%, like Paula just did. $2, how many hours times 4 weeks, $160 decision.
And then the next part to that is, what can I implement to make it worth the $2 an hour? And it goes with same technology, right? It's all of this. So you've got to have the system in place to get the metrics. Then you got to take the metrics, and then you make your decisions on the metrics, is the way I look at it.
So let's talk about verbal skills, because I think it's the conversation that we're having with ourselves and with others that drives this mindset. I think that if you wake up every morning and you're scared and you're saying, how am I going to survive this month, this week, this year?
What am I going to do when that dentist moves in next door?
Yeah.
What am I going to do if I lose Tammy at the front? How am I going to survive?
Yeah. Like I wish I could invest in a 3D printer, whatever, right? Like, just, it's that negative glasses half empty conversation that I feel like if you try to stop yourself from that and remove those things out of your vocabulary, and you start talking about how can this happen, like what would we need to do to make this work, or what small steps can I take to create this, or
when I train someone, what will it free me up to do, which is what I did.
Exactly. Like just, and then celebrating. I think all of us need to celebrate more. Even at next level practices, that's why I love our team meetings, because we force them to celebrate. Like the other day we had a team meeting and they said they got up to 380 Google reviews. Oh my God, that's amazing. What did you do? Well, we just started asking and having conversations. Oh my gosh, can we do that more? And everybody's like, yeah, we need to do that more. And it's just like, it's contagious to celebrate. And it's a good reminder that possibility is an opportunity. And if you don't celebrate, then you're constantly thinking about what's going to hit me next, or what could happen that's negative. I don't know. I think it's just a training inside. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think this verbal skill is really good for docs listening, because I hear it all the time. Well, doctors and hygienists, is they live in fear, scarcity, that if they diagnose their patient right, their patient's not going to do it, or they're going to feel like the patient feels they're ripping them off. They're going to feel like the patient's going to feel like they want to just buy a car. And so what I see a lot of doctors do is patch, watch, underdiagnose, hygienists not diagnosing perio, all because, part of it I think is because it's under their watch and they feel guilty. And then part of it is they have a fear of diagnosing a patient because the patient won't like them, or they'll go somewhere else. And I'm here to tell you that, presenting the ideal treatment plan with confidence, the patient does deserve to make their own choices and be presented with the best options. I don't joke about this, but I bring a very serious conversation to it. And I say, look, people get diagnosed with cancer all the time. And we wouldn't want, number one, our doctor to not tell us this week because they want to wait and plant a seed and tell us over a 6-month period, right? Mm-hmm. Number one. And number two, you want to catch it early, you want to catch it, and then you want to put the decision into the patient's hands. Patients get to decide if they want to treat their health or not. Let them decide if they want to treat their oral disease or not. So I see it all the time with diagnosis. It's
That's good.
The fear of scaring the patient off, the fear of being the bad guy, the fear of the patient blaming them, things like that. So, but with verbal skills, I think it also goes into you were talking a minute ago between negative talk and positive talk. And I think that, those verbal skills, what you're saying to yourself as a leader, you may not even realize how you're projecting that onto your team. So if you come in with a ho-hum, we're not doing well, the dentist is moving in next door, our fees are too high, our patients aren't going to pay them, then guess what? Your team's going to have the exact same perception and project the exact same thing onto the patient. So I think when I teach verbal skills to teams, whether it's case acceptance, phone skills, whatever it is, you never know the patient. There are some patients that don't even know what you said. They're just like, cool, whatever. They're going about their day. They don't make meaning to those words. And then we have a lot of patients and people who make meaning to everything you say. And then there's somewhere in between. So you have to really be careful, not only how you speak to yourself, how you speak to your team, and how you speak to your patient. So
I love that. I think language is so important, and it's sometimes harder when you're from Ohio and don't have great verbal. That was a joke, but no, it's sorry to make a joke of what you're saying, but absolutely, like I think how we how language is just so important. There's been a lot of like Instagram stuff about using better verbals. I think if you start watching that kind of stuff, you'll get into an algorithm on Instagram.
I think I have before. Mine kind of went away. I don't know what happened.
Oh, you stopped looking at it.
I must not have said
You know, the last kind of thing I wanted to take this is like, you know, just a reminder that you're the leader and visionary of your practice. So your team is not that for you. They're following you. They're taking marching orders. They're not supposed to lead. You are leading, and you are the visionary. If you're not a visionary, if you're not inspiring, you need to figure out how to be, because you're not going to get the goals and things that are in your head and get them to help you do those goals without inspiring and setting bigger goals. And I think that's one big thing as kind of a last segment to this episode is if you want to start thinking more in an abundant way, you need to set bigger goals. You need to, you know, inspire your team and start having the conversation. How can we do this? What ideas do you have to help me do this? Not, hey guys, you think we can do this? It's, hey, we are doing this, and how can we? And I need your help. There's a big difference in that, right? Because there's too many doctors out there that own practices that are expecting their team to drive them, and that couldn't be. Asking them to make decisions or asking for permission and forgiveness. No, like, you own your business. There's no reason for you to ask for forgiveness about setting goals or trying something new. Go do it, break through, have fun with it. And if it's a fail, well, sure, there's going to be some bitching, but it's your practice. And so you got to inspire them. That's exciting. And I think once that becomes a culture, then Nancy Joe, who's kind of a buzzkill, you know, who's kind of an energy vampire, will find her way out the door, because you have created a culture of possibility, a culture of growth, a culture of how can we do this. And Nancy Joe, who's saying, well, Delta Dental's doing this, and it's like, okay, bye. Like, got it. Yeah. You know, there's plenty of practices that are successful with Delta Dental, you know? So break it. Yeah, so you got to inspire them, and then you got to break it down into clear objective goals. Hopefully not too overwhelming, but why not? Because if they're a little overwhelming, it should be a little uncomfortable to break through some barriers. So, Paula, you do a lot of our annual planning, and it's interesting, right? Like when folks declare really big numbers, what usually happens? At the end of that year,
they hit them, or they try like hell to hit them, you know? And so, and the team usually rallies around them, and the team usually ups it, you know, a couple $100,000, if not more.
They do. The
doctor says $1 million. They're like $1.5 million. We're like, oh, okay. How about $1.2 million? Let's you know. I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, but if they did $1 million last year and they're declaring $1.5 million and they land at $1.2 million, it's like, holy crap, right? So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna piggyback. You know, number one, you know, we don't have to make with positive talk. Maybe Nancy Joe also gets inspired. You know, some people, you know, they just need, you know, that energy around them, and they can, maybe not to the extent that some people can, but we can see them be invigorated. And I was just going to, you know, piggyback off, you know, you talking about them being the visionary. So I think absolutely, if you want to leave a legacy, like a dental legacy with your patients and your team, and even yourself, I think that you do have to lead with vision and not fear. I think you do have to, like you said, Michael, lead with confidence, with no apologies. I think you got to invest in the growth and take the time to look out there and do your proper ROI. I do want you all to know the pie is big enough. The patient pool is big enough. the team members are big enough. And I had a dental office right next to my dental office. Heck, I borrowed from them. Sometimes they borrowed from me. Never once did I think, oh, he's going to take a patient. Matter of fact, sometimes I wanted to give him a few, like, can you take this patient for me, please? So, elevate your team, elevate your patients, elevate your practice. If you want to invest in technology, just do the homework. I think that when we've all felt it before, and it's probably more personal than in business, but when we lead with abundance, when we have that willing to share, that openness to whether it's our mind or items or anything, we usually get back tenfold. So I would say if you give your team this gift, you're going to get it back, because this is what they want. They want direction. They want to please. They want to have fun too. They want nice equipment, nice things. Not saying you have to have that at first or everything has to be state of the art. But if you all say, like, we want a 3D printer, right? Oh yeah, let's do it. You just all sit down as a team and figure out what do we need to do to get us there. So yeah, I don't think any goal is too small. It's just maybe a matter of how and when. But I think you can still get there. So
I think that's a great way to end the episode. And, folks, if you're interested in chatting and getting a second perspective, we'd love to help you out. Just kind of fight that dragon every single day if you can. So, let's shut this bad boy down. Thanks for helping me get through this conversation, Paul. I think it's a good one, and I think it's important. So,
okay, all right.
Have a good day, guys. Peace out.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Let us know how you like the show. Rate us on Apple and Spotify. Subscribe and follow for more.